Welcome to Slay, the podcast where we dive into all aspects of female health, fitness, and life. I'm your host, Louise Hazel, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about transition. Let's face it, all of us at some point in our lives are called to move on. If we're lucky, moving on might seem like a smooth and stress-free transition from one thing to the next, or from the old to the new. But if we're not so lucky, moving on can often feel like ripping a band-aid off of dry skin, absolutely brutal. So if you're currently in a period of transition and experiencing some growing pains and need some sisterly love and advice, then this episode is for you. Joining me today is a woman who is wise beyond her years and has successfully navigated a number of life-changing transitions. She's a dear friend, it's model, fashion designer and producer, the unstoppable and outrageously stylish Neha Kapur. Nay.
Hello, Louise.
Oh, Nay, I'm so glad that we get to sit down and do this.
Me too.
Now, Nay, you're literally one of the most sweetest, loyal, ride or die friends that I have in my life. So it's not only a pleasure to do this with you, but you're so much more than your appearance. But I want to take it all the way back because, you know, a lot of your life has been geared up around appearance and change of environments. I want to take it all the way back to the time when you entered the competition for Miss India 2006.
Right.
How did that come about? Who entered it for you? Did you enter it yourself?
No, firstly, thank you. That was lovely.
Bless you.
Very kind of you.
Always.
And I do love you. Miss India happened by fluke. I wasn't at all in one of those categories that grew up thinking that I wanted to be a part of it. Or, of course, I looked at it. I always used to watch it. I always used to feel really great for the girls who participated. But I never thought that I would be that girl. That happened when I was a part of this agency in India called Elite. And Miss India basically reached out to Elite and said they wanted some girls to come over and participate and audition. And I was, to put it mildly, pretty much not interested in it.
Why weren't you interested?
I had already been a runway model. I started when I was 15, so
young.
I was very young, but it was very exciting. And so when Miss India came around, it was something that took me away from everything that I was comfortable doing. I was doing runway all over the world. I was enjoying myself. I was a kid. I was earning money and traveling, and this seemed like a really big commitment.
And how old were you when the Miss India?
22.
22, got you. So by that time, you were already 7 years into your modeling career.
Totally. And enjoying. I was this young kid, and I never thought I would see the places that I saw. And again, this thing came about, and it seemed like too much of a pressure. And I remember being very adamantly against it. Long story short, they somehow convinced me. The agency did. And I remember going for the first day for the, when they kind of take you in or tell you how it's going to be. I remember I went to Bombay and I was so adamantly against it that I didn't even pack.
What do you mean you didn't pack?
I didn't pack clothes. I did not do anything. I just went right in. I was so sure I was going to leave that I went with just what I was wearing.
Wow. Because the Neha I know overpacks. She packed a weekend trip, 6 bags.
Yes.
So you were already went in with the idea.
I just knew that I'm not going to do it. And I just was humoring the agency and saying, okay, fine, I'm going to go and do it. And I got there. I did everything that I could to make them not want me.
Wow. Give me an example of what you did, Little Miss Mischief.
They had a reality television that was filming us that year, all 50 contestants. And every time the producers came towards me, the cameras came towards me, I would either flick them off or I would abuse on camera, so they would just have to cut it.
Absolutely.
I was just a kid who was just not wanting to be there. And it was very naive of me because I didn't see the bigger picture at that moment. And then somehow I think it was a series of my agency and my parents and everyone just kind of being there and being really disappointed that I was being this overgrown child who did not want to be there. And it was almost like I wasn't aware enough that I was afraid of losing.
Got
And
you.
that's why I didn't want to be a part of that competition.
Got you.
Because I wouldn't know how to, fix that narrative in my head.
Got
Because I had already been successful in what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was trying everything not to be a part of it. So I didn't have to go through the competition part. Where,
Got you.
what if I lost?
Right. Fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
Yeah,
And I didn't want to do that only because of that.
So you didn't know at the time that it was a fear of failure that was
Totally.
surfacing. You just were acting out and reacting to this kind of feeling and this sentiment inside that was just feeling unsettled or anxious, or
I
how
was
were you feeling?
anxious, unsettled, and definitely didn't want to leave my mold. I was so sure that this was not for me and that what I was doing was the right thing. That please do not tell me what to do. I'm not going to do it.
Was there a turning point in the competition?
Yes, I think the next morning, I remember waking up. And obviously, everyone spoke to me and said how disappointed they were in me. And I was acting like a fool and being all this like overgrown child behavior, And the next morning, I remember, I think there was going back into a place in me where it was like, it was make it or break it. And if I'm not going to do this, then what is this? Is this something I want to live with for the rest of my life? This
What,
narrative,
giving up?
Yeah, this giving up, this like, but I couldn't go through this. This is what I got scared of. And so the next morning I woke up and I called my parents and I said, can you pack me a bag?
I'm staying.
I'm staying.
Not, can you pack me a bag? I'm leaving. Can you pack me a bag? I'm staying.
Yeah.
Was there anyone who, took you under their wing and helped you with that experience and helped you kind of navigate your way through some of those
yes.
fears? Was there anyone that saw you and knew what was going on?
Yes, I think there were these. So we were all these young kids who were a part of the pageant, right? And so they always have these mentors, these ladies who are always there behind the scenes, who are just there to take care of you. They're always there to we're missing our homes. I mean, we're there for 3 months and we can't go home.
Wow.
And so they're always there to take care of us, whether we wanted something to eat or, And I remember I made friends with all these ladies. They were all maybe now in their 40s, but they were all there to take care of us. And I used to always I stayed away from the rest of the contestants because I was competing with them and that was me.
Oh.
But I befriended all these girls behind the scenes
Yeah.
and also all the producers who I was flicking off.
Got you. So you kind of made good in the end.
I did.
So you say you kind of separated yourself from the other contestants because you saw it as a competition.
No, I think I just did not want to lose focus because through the time of the pageant, you have to win about 10. There are 10 semi-pageants that happen while they're testing you out till the last one. And it's like Miss Photogenic, Miss something something, or, and
Which you won.
I won most of them. And
You won
the
Miss
only way I could do
Photogenic.
it was by not being, sort of in anyone else's space.
Got you.
And I think it also led to more competition from the other girls, and it's just fine. But for me, I have to put my head down and focus. And so it was always about making sure that whatever I was learning from the people who were there to teach us, like our diction coach, or it was people who were teaching us how to walk the ramp or talk, or how do you go and talk to some people when you meet them for the first time. It's almost like a finishing school. And I think for me, it was I'm just going to take everything they're giving me and I'm just going to put my head down and do it. And the only way I could do it was not.
That's so interesting because when we talk about school, you were a little bit of a rebel, weren't you?
I did, yeah.
So the
Anti-establishment.
Yeah. So, the fact that you kind of locked in when you finally got to the point where you decided that you were committing and you were, uber focused, almost the complete antithesis of some of the stories that you tell me from your school days when you were a little bit of a terror. Because your mum was a teacher, wasn't she?
She was.
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. I remember, weren't you playing truant? You were skipping school one day?
School was it wasn't the most exciting time of my life. I think for me, it was always about breaking away and not conforming to the norm. And I think it was really hard to be told what to do. And school in India is hard because it's very competitive in that way. And I was definitely not a great student.
What were the things that were taking your focus at that time?
I think I just wanted to be left alone in school. you know? And I think it was really hard because in my head, I wanted to be either the focus of everything or not. There was no in between. And so, you know, it wasn't like I was going out with friends or having this great, you know, sort of social life. It was more about, you know, just routine and being in it. And I think I remember being not necessarily mostly excited by it. You know, I just wanted it to end. I just wanted to like paint. At that time, I was a nerd. I used to paint. I used to like bunk class and go to the art studio and just sit there like for 4 hours. Or I would just go and like go to the library and sit and take a book and get into a corner. So it was never about really being in focus. And I think once I started modeling, I got that confidence. I realized that I had this in me, and maybe that's why I didn't want to conform to the norm, you know? That's why I didn't want to be in a classroom anymore.
Got you. Nene, talk me through the moment when you found out that you'd won Miss India 2006.
Well, the day of Miss India, so the live show started at 5 p.m. And the girls, we started getting ready around, you know, 12 or whatever. And I remember waking up that day, and I think I completely went quiet. Like, I couldn't say a word.
Were you scared?
Very.
Petrified.
I thought this was it. Today was the day. I don't know how it's going to go. And you know, you keep going through these things in your head where you're like, it's okay. Even if it doesn't, it's fine. You'll be fine. You're great. You did great. Everyone likes you. It's fantastic. And then it goes back, oh my God, what if I don't win?
And then there's the little devil that comes in and it's like, well, is it going to be
I
embarrassing?
know, they're both sitting on either side of my shoulder.
Absolutely.
Just before, there was this diction teacher that we had called Sabira Merchant. And until my dying days, I'll always be completely in awe of her because she came from the theater background and she was this very stern but very, very incredible teacher. And she was there throughout our journey leading up to the day. And she was so stern that we were all very scared of her because she would just call us out every time we messed up. And I remember getting this call from her. It's very odd because no one, I mean, we were all so scared of her that we didn't even know she had a number.
Of course.
And I get a call from her about an hour before the show. And I still remember, she said, "You've got it. Do not fumble. Stick to the plan and you'll be okay."
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. So clearly that showed that they were all rooting for me.
Yeah.
Didn't mean I'd won it.
Got
it was just
you.
one of those,
Did you feel like you'd won it? I mean, if she's like giving you that kind of backing and validation.
I knew that
Or was that more pressure?
it was a good, I was running up ahead, and there were other 2 girls too that were like with me up there. So I was like, it could go either way. But at least I knew that this was really, really, like, oh my God, Sabira just called me, this just happened. More pressure.
Absolutely. I was like, is that flattering or is that just the worst thing ever?
I'm flattered now, but then it was just like, oh my God. I remember winning. So this is what happened. This is funny. Just before we were giving these numbers, all the contestants, and one girl left in the middle of the pageant. She couldn't do it. She didn't want to be dealing with the pressure anymore, and so she left in the middle. So what happened was we'd all been given numbers throughout the pageant, and it switched just before the pageant went on.
Got you.
So I think I was number 15 or 16, and I suddenly became a 15. And so when they said Pons Femina Miss India 2006 is contestant number 15. So for a second,
You're like, thinking it's this other girl, right?
I was like, who? But then it was amazing. I mean, I did a little jig.
A dance?
I fist pumped, if you see it. And and that was incredible. I went and I remember taking the crown from the previous Miss India and putting it on my head. It was like, this is
wow.
Great. But it was lovely. Changed my life.
Absolutely did. And from then on, like trajectory, like you were already working as a model, but to kind of have that huge kind of like recognition, where did that catapult you to? Had you already been in the US and working in the US at that point?
No, I hadn't. I had come to New York on an exchange model trip at 21 or 20. And that time, I think it was wrong time, wrong space, because I remember walking to the agency and the agents didn't know what to do with my aesthetic. They thought
What do you
that-
mean by aesthetic?
So at that time, it was very much Eastern European look. They had a very androgynous. The girls were very androgynous looking, very blonde, very tall, very skinny. And they didn't know what to do with brown skin.
Right.
So I remember being sent to auditions that were not necessarily for Latina or brown skin. They were mostly for either black hair or because they didn't know where to fit me.
Right.
So they would send me to all these auditions, and I would not get it. And they used to keep telling me, "Don't wear makeup. Don't look. Don't. We need to look. You need to look more like simple." And I didn't understand why they would keep doing that because it was always like.
What do you think simple meant to them?
Like it's too exotic, maybe.
Right.
Like you need to look more simple so you can like fit in with the rest of the androgynous looking girls.
How did that make you feel?
That was a big blow. I remember because for 6 months they couldn't fit me anywhere, and I was in a model flat, and I remember them calling me and saying, if we find you work, we'll call you back, but we'll have to send you home. And I remember leaving for New York from India and being like, this is great. I'm going to be this big model. I'm going to be the first model who's moved away. And I thought that was it. Like you see your whole life flashing in front of you going, this is it, it's over. And then of course another transition happened. And I basically remember walking back to the model flat, crying, trying to punch in the numbers to get into the door. And I hear this guy come out from right next to the model flat was this boxing club.
Yes. Tell me about the boxing club.
And this guy comes out and he's like, "Hey kid, you want to box?" And I'm just standing there crying, and I'm like, "What?"
Was it Rocky Balboa? Who was it?
His name is Martin, and he
Oh.
owns Trinity Boxing Gym. And he took me to the boxing gym, gave me water because I was crying, I was bawling.
What was happening? You couldn't get into the apartment?
I was just trying to punch in my numbers through like all the tears, and he was like, he took me in, gave me some water, and I told him everything. They want me to go home, and I don't want to go home, and he was like, "Well, you're decent looking. You want to work behind the counter? You can't stay with me, but you can stay in the gym." Because they basically told me that they needed the bed, so I had to leave the model flat.
Got you.
So that day I packed my bags, I came down, turned around, went into Trinity, and then I stayed there for 3.5 months.
And you
4 months.
stayed again?
And I stayed back. Because if I'd left then, I would have that would have been another thing that would have just left undone, and not finished. And I had the best 4 months. It was amazing. I mean, it was all fun waking up at 5 a.m. to give the bands
Yeah.
and put the register on, but it was really fun.
Now, the funniest thing is, obviously, Nay and I found out the fact that we both lived in a gym at a
Yes.
certain point in our life.
Yes.
I think it was over like a Friday night dinner.
Yes.
And you were like, "I lived in a gym." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean you lived in a gym?" I'm like, "No, you didn't, Neha." You're like, "No, I lived in a gym. I lived in a boxing gym." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And when you told me this backstory, I think, so often all of us judge a book by its cover. And the thing that I've always known about you is that you are a really strong woman and that you don't give up. You don't give up easily. You are compromising, you are uncompromising in the things that you will do for yourself and more importantly for others. And so I was like, I knew there was a reason I loved her.
Oh, I love you.
And so, the fact that there you were, in New York, fighting to not go back home and doing what it takes to kind of follow your dream and ending up in the gym. And then years later, here we are in the Slay gym, putting up my camp bed. It makes me kind of question how many more women are going to be sleeping in gyms this year on their
Oh, you
journey.
know what? It's really fun, actually.
Is there anything, do you think, at that time that you wouldn't have done in order to follow your dreams?
No, I think I didn't have any expectations. So I was actually just being present in the moment. And I think that feeling I miss of, not having this thing in my head where I have to be somewhere or do something that how we rate success in our head? Because if we're not here, then it means we're not successful. We haven't reached our goal. At that time, my goal was just that. My goal was just being there amongst all these people who along the way became my friends, who when I won Miss India called me from New York. So it was just, I remember this too, that everyone that I made friends with in the gym came with me for more auditions to other agencies. Like they would come with me, when I had to go give my comm cards and so I think that moment, that period, I was just being, there was no rush to be anywhere or be a part of something. Or
Would you say it was a time in your life where everything was more simple, more stripped back?
Absolutely. And I miss that. I miss that not constant rush to like get to a goal, It was so incredible. Like I didn't think I was going to stay back. I thought my life was over.
Bless you. What do you think it was that made you stay? Like in you, what was that thing in you that was like, no, I'm going to go sleep in that gym. Martin, thanks. I'll take the keys. I'll give out the bands, do whatever I need to do. What was it in you?
I think I just wanted to hold my own narrative. That I chose this. I chose to be here. No one told me to go home. They told me to go home doesn't mean I'm going home.
I love that.
I think that's what it was.
I love that. You just picked up the pen and rewrote your own book. Now, life as a model, really hard. You obviously kind of faced a lot of struggle, but there must have been some really great upsides. What were your favorite campaigns? What were your favorite projects to work on?
I still remember my first cover. That was L'Officiel, and I think, this is before Miss India, so 20 years old. And I remember getting that call. And, it's that funny thing when you're a kid and you've seen people on the covers and you're like, oh, yeah, fantastic. And then you get that call and you're like, did I just get a call for a cover? That was incredible. I remember that. I remember, I think it was mostly always the goals of trying to get on the cover for most of the magazines. I think that's what was really incredible about achieving the next goal when it comes to modeling. But I think the best part was traveling. The best part was going to all these places that I never dreamed I would go to.
Where did you visit?
I went to Victoria Falls in Zambia. I remember being there and having this moment because, in the falls you have at least 10 rainbows. And I'm watching these 10 rainbows and I'm like, how?
Nay, speaking of rainbows, Kunal Nayar, your hubby, the love of your life. How did you guys meet?
We met in India, in New Delhi. He was visiting home for Christmas. And some friends of ours got us together. And the first time I got to know that he was in Delhi, someone said, oh, this actor's visiting home. And I was like, nope.
Did you know who it was?
Nope.
He was in The Big Bang already, or was he doing other projects?
He was I think, third season. So he was early stages. Yeah.
Got
you.
And
the second time around, we were at a bar. They didn't tell me he was going to be there. And there he was, lo and behold, in his trucker hat and his hipster glasses and cut-off gloves.
What was he doing wearing cut-off gloves?
I have no idea. Ask him.
I hope you threw those out.
I did. And that was it. I met him. We sat outside that bar for 3 hours and talked. And I saw him every day. He was there for 10 more days. I saw him every day. And then 3 weeks later, I was on the flight to LA.
Oh. How long did you stay in LA for?
2 weeks. And I do remember walking into his bachelor pad because it was a beautiful loft, don't get me wrong, but it had no doors in the bathrooms.
What?
There were only curtains on the bathrooms.
Look at my face. This is literally Eric's worst nightmare. I could live like that. No, I could totally live like that.
My worst
nightmare. I know.
I was like, wait, what?
What did you say? What did you do?
Nothing. That was our coy phase. I was us being really nice to each other. So I was like, oh, sweet. Not.
Oh my God. So you stayed in LA for 2 weeks?
I stayed in LA for 2 weeks. And by the way, you'd like this. The only stipulation I had was, if you're going to come to LA, you're going to take me to Disneyland.
Oh, and she says this, Nay's saying this because we have a trip to Disneyland planned, which will make sure we put all over the socials.
Absolutely.
Because we're going to go hard this year.
We're going to go hard.
Absolutely. I love that. And Eric and I are mad Disney fans.
Yes, you are.
We're annoying. We have the ears, we have the matching Spirit jerseys. But that's for a whole nother podcast. Nay, so you stayed for 2 weeks, and then what? You had to get back to India?
I had to get back because the first 2 years that Kunal and I dated, I was still doing runway.
Yeah.
And so after Miss India, I went back to doing runway again. And I would keep going back for seasons. So I would go back for Fashion Week, do Fashion Week, and come back to LA. And I kept doing back and forth for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that's it.
Got you.
It's too long a flight.
Got you.
Yeah.
And what did you do? Did you decide to step away from runway at that point? You moved to LA?
I was 28, when we got married. And by about that time, I had already been doing runway for 17 years. So I was pretty okay. I didn't want to leave. And there's this thing about modeling, so you don't want to keep doing it to the point where it becomes tedious. And it can very easily, because you are living out of a suitcase for months on end. And so I wanted to leave it at a high.
Got you.
And so I was like, this is good. I'm going to leave it now, even though I was still getting work and I was still doing, shows. But it was good. It was good at the time I left.
I think there's definitely something to be said, don't you, about kind of going out on a high. And I certainly felt this about my track and field career. At that time in my career, when I retired, I'd won the gold medal, and I was like, it is possibly a downhill slope from here. And I always think there's always a point of no return, right, when it comes to those transitions. And it's interesting because what I hear from you is that there have been a number of times in those life journeys where you've taken hold of the script and you've written the next chapter, and you're the one that has decided what, the next step is for you. Whereas I think a lot of the time, one of the things Eric and I talk about all the time at home is people that allow things to happen to them rather than them grabbing the steering wheel and driving that bus. But it sounds like you have always had quite a good steer, excuse the pun, on life.
I think because I think you're your own best sort of competitor judgment, person. And I think when you, in your own head, have set a bar at a certain level, you want to keep hitting that bar.
Right.
And then if you're not able to hit that bar, you're always feeling like you haven't accomplished it again.
Did you feel like you'd hit a ceiling with modeling?
I think so. And I definitely thought that it's important to, like you said, when you've hit a bar and you've realized that this is kind of the zenith of where I can go from here. Anywhere from here is just something that either you've done before or you're not going to really accomplish anything new.
How did that feel for you? Did it feel like a loss? Or because I know when that moment happened for me.
For me, it was a breakup. Definitely. It was like something that I was saying goodbye to, that life. Not necessarily the feeling of it, but just the idea of how I had lived for those 17 years. So it felt really bittersweet, but at the same time, the right decision.
What was bitter and what was sweet?
The bitter part was I was saying goodbye to everyone that I worked with, people that I spent most of my adult life with, young adult life with, They were my agents, my managers, my agency, my girlfriends that I worked with, all those people who still continued working after I left. But, I had to make the decision for myself, otherwise I would have regretted it later.
And what was the sweet bit other than Canal?
The sweet bit was opportunity.
And what lay ahead?
The new unknown, charting out a course that it was definitely an unknown. I mean, it was very hard, even though I thought it was going to be great and it was a new life and I was going to take it by the horns.
Are we talking about a new life in LA? Did that feel like a risk to you?
Not at the moment, but it definitely crept up on me as the year went on. After the first couple of months was great because you're moving into a new home and you're creating your house, and I think once it kind of settled is when it started to creep up. Moments of times where I just never thought that I would be sitting around in a new country pretty much friendless at that moment because
having to start over,
having
right?
to literally start over from scratch, even driving on the other side of the road. I mean, that
Which is still kind of thereabouts.
oh my gosh, let's not go there, but yeah.
Excellent.
But it was hard. It took me a really good amount of years, almost 3 years, for me to
feel
really feel
settled?
settled here.
And what was it, do you think, that helped you feel settled? How did you put your best foot forward?
I think the only way that what started to happen was I started to blame Kunal. And I started to sort of regret my decision of giving up everything that I had worked for. And so I remember having this conversation back home and realizing that I don't want to resent my life. And I don't want to resent what I've built or the choices that I've made to get here. So the only way that I can pull myself out of it is, again, trying to reinvent myself. That's how Hensley came about, my brand.
Yes.
Because I realized that at that moment, I needed to do something on my own that was separate from Kunal. That I called my own.
Yeah. So Hensley is your clothing brand, your fashion brand.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. Started in 2016, you founded it, or
Yes.
Launched it in 2000?
Launched it in 2016.
What was the development process like? It must have been quite long, no?
It was quite incredible, actually. I remember just like meeting Sakshi, one of my dearest friends, and she was, of course, a part of Hensley with me. But leading up to even getting to that point of launching Hensley, I remember being completely lost. I remember being like, how do you start a brand? How do you start a business in a country that I've never grown up in? I don't know anybody. And so we hired a marketing agency at that point, just a branding agency, sorry, just to kind of gather information of how this is done.
Yep.
Along the way, of course, a roller coaster happened and I met people and, I set up the business. But it was, I have to say it was incredible. It was incredible. And the best thing that I could have done for myself in America.
What do you think it gave you, starting your own brand, your own fashion line, creating the clothes that you love to wear?
I think what it gave me was a different perspective as to how I should approach living here. Being, I didn't, like I said, I did not want to be under Kunal's shadow because he had already, achieved what he had achieved and he's incredible at what he does. But I didn't want to really, ride on that.
Yep.
And so this gave me an opportunity to start from scratch. And that was incredible. The fact that I could just build piece by piece, brick by brick, that was what I thought was incredible.
Ultimately, you wound the business up a couple of years later, 2018. How did that feel? Like, starting something ferociously, throwing yourself into it, and then, winding everything back down again. 2019, sorry.
2019. I remember winding it down because it had started to manifest itself in my behavior and my personality. Where it happened was actually along the way. Okay, this is going to sound funny. I would put in all my efforts and my being and my soul into this. And so with Sakshi, my Sakshi. And then what started to happen was the other people that were a part of the business, they were just there for the business part of it. They were just there as a professional who's there getting paid.
Did it feel transactional?
And it felt really transactional. And it felt like what I could do. And, it's like that funny thing where you think, I can do it better than you. So give it to me, I'll go and sell it. Or give it to me, I'll go and talk to this. And I wanted to do that. I felt helpless because I felt like this is a professional who's in sales. This is a professional who's really good at pattern making. And this is, but it was control given to everybody else. My bit was designing and my bit was being there when it got sold. But other than that, I just felt helpless. And so giving the control to everyone else along the way and not having them perform as much as I would expect them to really hit the company in a big way. And I felt like I was just in the red for a long time, to be honest. And I think it was really taking a toll, because I really wanted to perform. And I kept performing the way I know how to perform, but it was also other people's, sort of input in there. And
Nay, what would you do differently?
I think today, if I was to start a brand, I would go very, very small baby steps. And I would keep at every turn testing it. So before even hiring anyone new or doing something, I wouldn't even hire anyone new for a long time, firstly. I would just keep it 2 people and that's about it.
Yeah.
But if I were to even hire someone new or add a new component to the brand, I would constantly test it, because I think what I really gave up at that point was actually taking it out there and getting it sort of tested and worn. And, I didn't do it because I thought I was like putting a product that was quality. But I know where I failed, and I failed was I did not get it completely tested out in the market before I let it out. And I should have done that. And I would do that constantly at every curve now.
Got you. I love that. Would you ever go back to modeling?
Ooh. I think it'll be different now. I think I would choose the outputs where I'm putting my face.
Look at my face. Because I see it, like I see that for you. I feel like there's a return to modelling
I would love it.
in the not so distant future. In fact, more importantly, please contact me. I'll be taking any applications to represent my client Neha Kapur. I definitely see that in the not so distant future. I'm just writing that on the wall. Nene, would you say there are any other areas of your life that you've had to transition or start over in? Modeling, the fashion business?
I think there's a thought that keeps coming in my head these days, and that is, the same thought which I think pointed out a while ago, which was, we set this bar in our head. And we want to constantly achieve that bar over and over again. And we rate success in a different way, right? Maybe Instagram tells us a different story. Or you should be, front row fashion week, or you should be at the Met Gala, or you should be like winning $1 million. I don't know. Whatever that rate of success is. But I think in my head, it's about what keeps coming in my head right now is, how do I keep reinventing myself so that I am constantly relevant in my own narrative? Because I keep falling off that. I keep falling off the sidelines every now and then. And I have to keep pulling myself back up there and being like, no, you still have that. It's still there. You just have to tap into it again. Just stop being scared of it.
The interesting thing is, I kind of feel the same thing. I remember back when I was competing, it's almost like you're checking in with yourself. Are you the person you said you were? Are you still going to do the things you said you were going to do?
Right.
That's really interesting. What do you think the future holds?
Well, I think definitely something where what opportunities I had growing up. If I can have my legacy where I can create the same opportunity for those people who come from different backgrounds and different life stories, if I can give that to them, and however that looks like, I don't know in what capacity it is. And I'm not saying charity. I'm actually saying building something for these kids out there that can actually showcase their talent, actually showcase their, worth, come, compete, whatever you want to call it. I think that's where the realm is. That's where I lie. Yeah.
Is it fashion, modeling, both?
I think it's all encompassing. I think it would be definitely the industry I belong to, because that's what I know.
What do you mean you belong to? You belong to the fitness industry?
Of course I do. I mean, trusting my guru here. She's made me. But yeah, I think it'll be definitely somewhere in the fashion realm.
I love it. Now, talking of fitness, you're by far one of the top competitors in the Slade gym, myself included. Eric will probably throw his name into the mix. But one of the things I love about you, and I love about training you, is the fact that I remember the first day we met and the first day that you stepped foot in the gym, We'd never met before, and I remember we were actually doing a double session with our good friend Sarah, and I gave you a pink kettlebell, and a pink kettlebell is like a moderate amount of weight, and then there's the blue kettlebell, which is a little bit heavier weight. And I gave you the pink kettlebell, but I set the blue kettlebell down, and you immediately picked up the blue kettlebell and started squatting it. And I was like, oh, we've got an athlete on our hands. Nay, again, you throw yourself in when it comes to fitness. You really commit, you throw your body in hard. And I think, when we first met, it was very apparent to me that part of your personality that is super committed, hyper focused. I knew that probably one of the things that I had to offer you as a coach was to take all of that energy and just direct it into the right direction. Because I was like, is this girl going to show up? Absolutely. Is she going to show up on time? Yes. Is she going to, do the things I ask of her? 100%. She's actually going to do the things I ask of her, and then all the other stuff as well. And I felt like, talk to me about where you were at when you first started and when we first met in terms of fitness, because I feel like you're like one of the easiest people to train in the world.
Thank you. When I first came here, before that, I think it was just whatever I was learning, I wanted to learn and I wanted to imbibe it. And I think what was happening before I came to Slay was I was doing everything without any plan. And I remember when I came here for the first time and you had this conversation with me, we did a consult, and you said, what plan have you been on? And I had no answer because there literally wasn't. There was no food plan. There was no direction in terms of what the goals were. And of course, I also had walked into Slay with an injury.
Yes.
And so I was so scared to do most of the exercises because I felt like I didn't want to keep going back to square one. I think what really changed for me being here is using mind to body focus, and actually understanding what is going in and how it's sort of performing, and B, how it's literally intentional. So whatever we're doing was intentional, and I think for you to teach me that was probably like game changing and like completely changed the way I see fitness, because I always prided myself on being disciplined, and I would come in and I would do my job and I would do my work and put in the time, but there was just no goals. So all I was doing was showing up, really. But coming here, showing up was a completely different story. Showing up was actually you're showing up for yourself, really. And the way that my fitness journey has changed from the last 3 years, I mean, there's just a magnitude of information.
What have you learned about your body?
Well, I think that, there's so many myths and there's so many to-dos, and you don't have to do all that, right? I mean, from dieting to, having hot water because you want just, skinny stomach, or, to like not eating or intermittent, whatever you want to call it. What really I've really learned is like, you need to fuel if you're going to like lift. I mean, that's the first thing I realized, that it's not about your weight loss. It's not about your, what your size is. It's really just about how are you becoming strong and how are you fueling your body and what that means in the long run. What I'm doing right now and how this helps me 10, 15, 20 years from now. And this is not a maintenance plan. This is actually me just feeling strong on an everyday basis. And that has changed dynamically for me.
Certainly has. Like, I've watched you go literally from strength to strength. The Neha that walked, I think, into the doors was performing every single day. So I feel like you were going at it like 110% every single day. And I felt like actually all I simply did was change your daily performance to daily training, with performance aspects. Like, I know how much you can bench press. I know how much you can squat. I know how much you can, be lifting. I know how many pull-ups you can do. One of the exercises that I'm really, really most proud of when it comes to like your training is your pull-ups. And more importantly, like recently coming back from trips and being able to get in that rack and do full pull-ups.
That is just you, by the way, firstly.
No,
Let's
it's
just give
you.
credit. Because
It's
I think that
absolutely you.
if there wasn't a plan, Louise, which you have and you are on it, so is the rest of the gym. You know, everyone that works here, everyone who's here, Eric, you, everyone. You are so invested. And I think that was something that was so amiss forever. And I think once I came here, I realized that not only am I showing up, they're actually respecting me showing up. So they're also putting in that time for me. So it's not just me being like, can I eat this and can I eat that? No, it's about actually having a plan. So yes, I could go away for 2 months and come back and do a pull-up, but that's because there's a plan in place. If there wasn't a plan in place, I would have probably
Still be at the bottom of the
I would still
bar.
be just hanging. So,
What advice do you have? What advice do you have for women who are, starting out, trying to get fit? I see your friends coming up to you all the time. You've referred so many of your friends over to us, and they are like, "What is Neha doing?" Like, what is your advice to those people out there who are, feeling a little bit lost in that fitness journey?
I think it's very. I feel like when someone's lost, like I was, I think it's really important to ask questions and to take advice. And if you trust someone and you see someone doing something that's right and doing it right, I'm not saying losing weight and becoming skinny. I'm talking about doing it right and they're strong and healthy. And there is a formula in place that works for them. It may not be the same formula for you, but if there's a formula that's working for someone, take advice, ask them. Because I did. Something wasn't working for me at that time, and I just wanted to change. And I don't know what that change was till I came here. And I think it's about taking that step and saying, I want to invest in myself, and I want to be healthy, and I want to go seeking it. And so I think that was my first thing. I was like, take advice, go seek someone who's a professional who'll put you on the right path, And I think that's the first step, really.
Nay, we know how active you are, like literally every day. She's banging at the door trying to get in the gym. But what do you do to unwind?
Oh, gosh.
We're laughing because the answer is absolutely nothing. What's unwinding? I don't know.
I like to knit.
Yes. And you're a great knitter as well. Where's my cardigan, by the way? I thought you were doing me a cardigan.
I don't knit cardigans. I'll give you a throw. Because I just know how to knit in one line. I like to knit. And I like to read.
Yeah.
And I'm a big consumer of Netflix.
Ooh, what are you watching on Netflix?
Narcos Mexico at the
Oh,
moment.
wow. That's quite a big series.
It's
Does
lovely.
that have multiple seasons?
3.
3 seasons. Where are you in it?
2.
2. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you the type of person, are you a Netflix binger? Do you watch it all in one go? Do you wait till the whole thing's out and then watch it all
Absolutely.
in one go? Okay, you're
I
not
can't.
the week to week.
Nope, I can't do it.
That's annoying.
It makes me super incensed and I can't do it.
Yeah. Eric and I are watching for our sins Love is Blind. And this week to week thing is just killing me.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
we already know what happened because of Instagram.
Of course, but stop.
we need to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, we can't do it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nene, we're going to close out
Yeah.
with a game called Big or Bang. So,
Isn't that for Kunal?
big is you're going to go big on this thing, like I'm all about it. And bang is no, it's got to go.
Okay.
Okay, it's going to be a quick fire round, so don't think too much. We can definitely chit chat if it needs further discussion.
Okay.
But I want you to just fire it out, big or bang. Big is staying, bang, it's got to go. Okay, get ready. Low rise jeans,
Bang.
out. Bangs.
Big?
Only because I
she's
got bangs. I hate you. Scrunchy socks.
Big.
We love scrunchy socks, don't we? Designer handbags,
Big.
always. Plaid shirts, like checkered shirts.
Big.
Big?
Yeah. If done well.
Okay. Kitten heels.
Big. Yeah.
Bang. Quiet luxury.
Big.
Activewear.
Big.
Mini dresses.
Big.
That's it. Basically all big. You basically love all things.
I'm an optimist.
Absolutely are. Now, give me a couple of fashion trends for 2023. What is going to be the hottest thing for 2023?
4.
Fall?
24.
Sorry. Give me the hottest fashion trends for 2024. What's going to be the biggest thing that we see this year?
I think you're banged it on that one.
Bangs?
Sorry, not bangs. Sorry, I meant quiet luxury.
Quiet luxury.
I think it's really going to be metallics and quiet luxury. I feel like they've seen a lot of metallics on the runway. And I think that's really, it's quite amazing to have some metallics with quiet luxury. I think there'll be a big boom of that.
So you heard it here first. You can reuse all of the outfits that you used for the Beyonce concerts.
Oh, lovely. The Renaissance concert, all of them. All of them.
I love it. Nene, thank you so much for joining us on the Slay podcast. You are a welcome guest anytime. I can't wait for our part 2. I love you so much.
Oh, I can't wait too.
Mwah. That concludes this episode of Slay. I remember a quote once that said, "The secret to change is to focus not on fighting the old, but on building the new." Stay tuned for more empowering discussions on female health, fitness, and life. You can follow me at Louise Hazel, and you can follow Neha at Neha Kapur on social media. Check out the Slay brand at Slay Athletic, and don't forget to subscribe to the Slay podcast and leave a review if you haven't done so already on Spotify. You can get all of the tools and resources that I mentioned in our podcast on the Slay app. You can download that now for free from the App Store.